Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your Chief Security Fanatic here, and today I want to talk about alternatives to programs that we use on a regular basis, whether it's apps or online in some way, shape, or form. Now, many of us have Facebook. Almost everybody uses Google in some way, shape, or form, but we also know we're being data mined, or in the case of Facebook, we've had multiple data breaches. They've let people come in and scrape our information. And so I am constantly being asked, Nick, what are some free alternatives to Facebook and Google and YouTube and all this kind of stuff that is not going to data mine you, that is going to be more secure, that is based in encryption and all of that. And so with that, I have put together a list here of some of the major platforms that we use and some free alternatives that basically would keep your life more secure and a lot more private from being tracked. Now, this is not the be-all, end-all list, and I know that a lot of my followers here that may be watching or listening to this are actually in the cybersecurity or IT community. So guys, feel free to pipe up and let me know other alternatives I may have missed here, or feel free to tell me I'm an idiot because I included something you think is not as secure. But from everything I know, we are good to go in terms of security with these. So with that, I'm going to go through the alternatives. I will also give you any caveats that I have found with these alternatives as I've used them or test them or even use them in my daily life. And so I will also talk about their survivability in the long term, because one of the biggest fears is that as you move to another service, if they're going to be sold or go under, then you have to basically redo something in your life. So we're going to talk about that as well. And the first one up is we are going to talk about Google. Now, Google is massive. We know Google data mines the bejesus out of us so that they can tailor search results to us, sell it to advertisers and all of that. Not to mention, various data scrapings. They've allowed third-party contractors into Gmail to read your email and all this kind of stuff. And so we're going to go through some of these alternatives. Now, first up is Google Search. Everybody uses Google Search. I shouldn't say everybody, but the vast majority of the planet uses Google Search. There is a reason why they are #1 by far. But there are actually some really solid alternatives to Google Search that a lot of people don't realize. The first one is Duckduckgo. Now, you might have heard of them. They made some news a few years back when there was a major, basically, privacy incident for Google, and Duckduckgo saw a massive surge in users. Duckduckgo will give you search results like Google, but they don't put you into a filter or search bubble, and they are not tailoring the results to you. The other alternative is Startpage. I actually use this one on my Android phone. And basically, Startpage takes results from Google, actual Google search results, and gives this to you, but it strips away all of the trackers and all the personally identifiable information on you, so the results you're getting are actually raw. You can actually, with Startpage as well, go and view through their proxy a web page anonymously to help ensure your anonymity through them. Now, the downside that I have found to both Duckduckgo and Startpage is that the results are not tailored because you're not in that search bubble. And as much as we don't want to be data mined, I have to say, if I am looking for something very specific and I Google it, or I go to Duckduckgo or Startpage, Google tends to give me my more tailored results much faster and much higher in the ranking through search, but Duckduckgo and Startpage will also deliver as well. I just have to find it. Now, the other thing I found interesting with Google that I don't see with Duckduck, well, Duckduckgo has a little bit of it, but not with Startpage, is when I go to do things like a currency converter. So what is, £5, in US dollars, or what is €5 in US dollars, that kind of thing. Google instantly gives you that. I've seen Duckduckgo give you that, but Startpage does not, primarily because I think they're just pulling straight from Google. And so the first hit would be a third-party calculator. Now, that might be good because you don't want to be data mined by Google, who may think, oh, he's converting into euros from dollars. Maybe he's taking a trip to Europe, something along those lines. So those are two really good alternatives, Duckduckgo and Startpage, to the Google search itself. Now, sticking with Google, we actually have another massive program that Google gives the world, and that is Gmail. You may have a Gmail, and if you have an Android phone, you absolutely have a Gmail account, but Gmail is free, and it's ubiquitous, and is the largest free email platform on the planet, but we know they've let third parties in to data scrape, data mine, all of that, not to mention the fact that Google itself data mines it to hone the advertising. So a free alternative to this and I absolutely love it, is called Protonmail. Now, Protonmail is based out of Switzerland, which has some of the most stringent privacy laws on the planet, and it works effectively well. It's got apps for Google, Android, iPhone, etc., etc., and so it works very well. The only downside I have with Protonmail is that the free version gives you 500 megabytes of storage and 150 messages a day. But you can upgrade for a little less than $5 a month US and get a heck of a lot more space and unlimited messaging. So Protonmail is pretty good for that. Moving on, Google Calendar is the next big thing that Google does for us. And again, data mining, etc., etc. Proton also has a calendar called Proton Calendar, and it seems to work effectively well. Now, the only caveat that I have with this is that right now it's still in beta. I do not use Proton Calendar in my daily life, but it seems to be very effective. Now, with everything that I've just mentioned, Duckduckgo, Start Page, Protonmail, and Proton Calendar, the question is, what is the survivability against Google? And the answer for all of these is simply this. These guys have been around for years in their respective organizations. They have not gone anywhere, and they slowly seem to be ticking up in terms of use and adoption as people like myself start recommending them on stage in videos to colleagues, to companies, whatever that is. So these players seem here to stay. As far as I know, none of them are in any kind of financial trouble, and so their survivability seems to be pretty good, especially as the world is waking up to just basically the massive data mining that companies like Google do to us. And so by virtue of that, the last Google thing I'm going to talk about, and the answer to this is pretty much the same, is the Chrome browser. Now, Google Chrome is the most popular browser on the planet by download, hands down, and so they actually have a couple of alternatives that you can go to. The first one is Brave. Now, many of you probably have not heard of Brave unless you're in cybersecurity or really looking for private browsers, but Brave doesn't really seem to have any real downside. It's actually based on the Chromium code, which is the same code that Google Chrome is built on, but they stripped all of the trackers out, and they put in a lot of anti-tracking stuff, so I can actually see as I go to a website the trackers that it's been killing and all of that. That seems to be really good. Now, they have an opt-in for their own advertising system, and that advertising system is typically ads for privacy and cybersecurity companies and all of that. That is how they make their revenue, but you actually do not have to opt into that if you don't want to, and so they will basically strip all of the advertising and trackers for you, making you a lot more secure as you browse. And the next one is Firefox, which has been around forever. That's Mozilla, and they basically are I think the #2 browser right now on the planet, outside of probably a Microsoft browser that comes default firing up in Windows. Now, I will say this, I find that some websites load better in Chrome than they do in Firefox, but honestly that's very, very rare, and I don't think Firefox has as many plugins in their library, but their library is still utterly massive, and if you are looking at all of the major plugin creators, they are on all the platforms in that sense. Brave doesn't have that issue. It can plug into Chrome plugins very easily. The last Google product I want to talk about is YouTube. YouTube has basically been under fire for censorship, obviously data mining, all that kind of stuff as well, because that's what they do. And there are some free alternatives that you can start posting your videos to or watch videos on. The first one I want to talk about is actually one called BitChute. Now, this is a decentralized platform, and here are some caveats, I think, to BitChute. My videos, I was alerted to this. I didn't even know this existed until one of my viewers said, hey, I'm getting off of YouTube and I'm moving to BitChute. Why don't you replicate your videos there? It was very easy for me to set up an account on BitChute. It was free, and I could just plug in my YouTube ID, and it automatically started transferring stuff over. I didn't have to do anything, and so now officially I'm on BitChute. I would say the only caveat that I have seen with BitChute is that literally anything goes. And of course, if they are, against any kind of censorship, then anything would go. And so we are talking about the most tinfoil hat of conspiracies, not to mention the fact the comments section on YouTube gets pretty rough. and I think BitChute occasionally turns it up to 10. I have been called some of the worst things in my life, on BitChute and all of that, not to mention a shill for the government and, part of the conspiracy and, all that kind of stuff. I have a pretty thick skin for this kind of stuff. It doesn't bother me at all. But if you don't mind that kind of stuff, and if you don't mind, having conspiracy theories that are borderline shocking or worse, then BitChute is an alternative. Now, there are other ones that I think are a little more, I want to say, mainstream, or we pop into our lives in a more regular basis, typically linked through social media like Facebook, and that would be DTube, Dailymotion, Vimeo, Metacafe, and some others. Those are also alternatives to watch videos or post your videos on, and they all have their ups and downs and all of that. But, oftentimes with these, it's pretty much anything goes. So it's a lot more Wild West than YouTube is, but if you are looking for something that's not going to censor and data mine you, those are all really good alternatives for that. Again, take the good with the bad. Now with that, let's move on to Facebook. Because Facebook is a bit of a tougher one because there's no real all-in-one competitor to them. And so it's kind of hard to say like, oh, I'm going to move here or there for this. And the real tough one is social media. So the actual Facebook itself, when we are looking at social media, there are a lot of smaller competitors like MeWe, Ello, Diaspora, and Vero. But here's the thing. Nobody is really on them comparatively. Now, MeWe, I believe, has claimed something like 4 or 8 million users. And when I made a jump to MeWe and said, hey, I'm going to spin up something on MeWe, I think I had like 3 people follow me. And it was very hard to get people to move from, let's say, in my personal Facebook, from Facebook to a MeWe or something like that. And so if you are signing up for one of those, it feels kind of lonely. I'm not going to lie. When Facebook, everybody's there, especially your non-technical friends that will post the most horrific things to Facebook in terms of data mining. Like, why would you let your insurance company read that? And you just posted this online, kind of stuff. And so only, it seems like more tech-savvy, privacy-minded people are adopting these. I will try every platform just to see what it's like. I tried Ello back in the day. I tried MeWe as well. In terms of longevity, I honestly couldn't tell you if these companies are going to stay because Facebook is such a juggernaut when it comes to actual social media, building that living room or town hall as Facebook likes to see it, which is really depressing to me because obviously they are data mining the ever-living bejesus out of us, not to mention data breach after data breach after data breach, storing passwords in plain text, psychographic profiles. It's a complete mess. But there are some other Facebook alternatives out there for other Facebook properties, and the first one is WhatsApp. Now, WhatsApp, they have said, oh, this is a secure way to go end-to-end when you are sending messages, but they also said that they will work with law enforcement and intelligence agencies to basically data scrape. So even though WhatsApp is, let's say, sending your message encrypted, it's very possible Facebook has weakened that encryption so it can be captured in transit. But the apps themselves, as you receive or type the message, are being data mined, and this has been proven, I think, over and over and over again in various articles. So there are some alternative to WhatsApp that are way more secure that you can use. The first one is Signal. I love Signal. Signal encrypts end-to-end, and it has actually a lot of controls integrated into whether you're running an iPhone or an Android to ensure that it is private. There's also Telegram, Messenger, Viber, and some others as well. Signal has been around for years, as has Telegram and Viber, and so all of these are really good alternatives. I know that Telegram had a bit of a challenge with the Russian government a few years ago because the Russian government wanted to basically have them weaken their encryption so they could get in. I believe they refused. I always love to hear that kind of stuff. So I really believe in Signal. I love it. It works great. It is also my text message alternative as well. But Telegram and Viber are also viable, and it looks like they are here to stay. And there are other things also that we can talk about, but those are the critical ones that a lot of people look at. I don't have an Instagram alternative. That's also another Facebook property that gets data mined to the nth degree. And if you have an Instagram alternative for me, please let me know. But the biggest problem that we have with the Facebooks of the world is that they're just populated. And if we can't populate an alternative, then we're never going to have anybody that's viable to compete with Facebook. And therefore, you can make an argument that they have a monopoly on that. And that is a legal thing that has been going back and forth in the U.S. government. And so those are your alternatives. Tell me if you agree or disagree. Tell me your alternatives that I missed. I'd love to hear from you. And that is your news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter, where you'll be data mined. And you can subscribe to me at YouTube as well, where you'll be data mined. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.